Hello, I'm Graham Hughes. This is Cosi Doerfel Hill, and this video is about settled status, which is something that all of the 3 million EU citizens living in the United Kingdom are having to deal with at the moment as a result of Brexit. And so, Cosi, you're a German citizen by birth.
That's right, yeah.
How long have you lived in the United Kingdom?
30 years.
30 years.
Little while.
Okay, and do you have a British passport or anything?
No.
Why don't you have a British passport?
Because for most of the time that I've lived here, Germany didn't actually allow dual citizenship. So I wasn't going to give up my German passport in order to get a British passport, even though I acquired the right to get a British passport sometime back in the 90s. And then it was taken away from me by this government.
So
Nice.
your right to have a British passport, that you no longer have that anymore?
Well, I have it again now with settled status, if I get it, but we'll get to that.
Okay, so now you're being forced by the government to apply to stay in the country that you've been in 30 years, that you've worked in, you've paid taxes in, you've got 2 children, is it? And if you don't do this, the plan is to kick you out the country, to deport you?
In a couple of years' time. They've given us a couple of years' time
to get your stuff together, buy a new house in Germany, or any of the other countries of Europe, actually, because as a German citizen,
I still have freedom of movement.
Still going to have freedom of movement.
Yes, but I choose not to leave because my children and my husband don't want to leave. I also don't really feel enabled to leave because none of my qualifications are recognized anywhere else. All my qualifications are British. I've been here all my adult life.
So your husband's British?
He
Your
is.
2 children are British, they have British passports.
Yes.
And if everything was just left to the way a lot of people in this country seem to want it to go, you would be deported back to the EU mainland, if you like.
Well, they'd send me to Germany, which is the last place in the world I want to live. I mean, there are reasons I left.
And what's the plan for your children then? Do they have to leave school, go to a German school, or do you have to leave them behind?
I would have to leave them behind.
So that's the plan of the British government, half the British people, they want to just split your family up?
Yep.
Because
also my husband is a British citizen, and therefore, if we were to go to an EU 27 country, he might not be able to join me. Or at least he would be, in limbo, whereas I'm in limbo here, he would be in limbo too over there.
This seems like incredibly cruel. Now, you're quite smart, he's quite tech savvy. I worry a lot about older people. One of my friends, his mum is from Spain, his dad's from Poland, and they're in their 80s. And we're going to talk a little bit now about the process of getting you settled status. Is it as simple as downloading an app? Is there an app for that?
Yep, there's an app for that.
Oh, great. Okay, can I get it on my iPhone?
No, you can't.
Oh, well, that's good, because I don't have an iPhone.
So, it only works on an Android platform.
Right, okay.
Not only that, it only works on an Android 6 or higher platform. So you've got to have a pretty new phone.
So the phone that I'm recording your sound on, that's not good enough because that's a few years old.
Oh, there you go, not a chance. My phone is an Android 7, so I thought, I'll be okay. At least I'll be okay. And I do worry about other people as well who will find it more difficult to access the technology. So the other day I went and decided that I'm going to swallow my pride. I'm going to put myself on that deportation list, as many people are calling it. Maybe a bit hyperbolic, but I understand where they're coming from. And I went to download the app. And the computer says no, because my phone doesn't actually have NFC capability. You've got to have that too.
Oh, right. So it's not just that you have to have the latest version of the phone. You have to have
NFC as well.
So if you've got not the top of the range phone, you probably don't have NFC on your phone.
Exactly. So I think somebody worked out that the cheapest phone that has the capability for it costs about £350. Nice, right?
And this is just to continue your life in England with your children. Mm-hmm. How old are your kids?
11 and 8.
Oh my word, so this is at least another decade you definitely need to be in this country.
Yeah, I wasn't planning on leaving. I mean, I never planned to grow old in this country. I didn't come here for the climate, I
don't think anybody did.
No, none of us did. So, I've started developing arthritis. I always knew that at some point in the distant future, I would want to go to warmer climes, maybe to retire or something. But, once my children were born, and certainly once they started school, I knew that I was going to be here for a good wee while yet. And that was fine, because we're in the EU. That's another reason I never looked at.
3 million people in the same situation as you.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about the app then. So you downloaded it, and then is it a simple process? What evidence do you need to give them?
So I didn't download it because I haven't got NFC. Okay. So I smiled sweetly at my darling husband, and he's just had an upgrade to a brand spanking new phone, and it's got everything. So his phone has the capabilities.
Are you allowed to use a British-bought phone though, or do you have to buy the phone yourself?
No, you can actually borrow somebody's phone. The Home Office suggested that if people haven't got, because during the process of developing the app, different user groups that the Home Office consulted with did actually point out the difficulty that, not everybody has an Android, that this might cause some problems. And the Home Office actually suggested, people could just borrow a phone from a friend to download and read all your sensitive data.
I am so disgusted. I am so disgusted with this country. I am so disgusted with the people who want this. They think they're good people. They sleep at night. I don't know how they sleep at night.
I don't either, actually.
Right, okay, anyway, back to the app.
Back to the story. So my darling husband downloaded the app so that I would be able to apply to stay in our home together and continue to care for our children. Now, I'm lucky. My husband isn't a domestic abuser. He's not going to use this for coercive control.
Oh my God, that's a point.
But we know of cases where that sort of thing happens. We have heard in our group, in the Limbo group, we have heard of cases where people have come out with phrases like, "You need me to stay in this country." We know that there have been cases where women were about to leave their British husbands and didn't for fear of jeopardizing their status here, their legal status here, and then becoming liable to deportation. Because don't forget, if my husband and I had a big fight, now we're not likely, my husband's a darling, he would never do this. But if he was a different kind of person and we had a big fight and he battered me and I got out of the house with nothing but the clothes on my back and my life, if I'm lucky, and went and didn't have anywhere to go and became homeless, then the Home Office would deport me. Take me to a detention centre and then deport me. By the way, the UK is the only civilised country that has unlimited detention, and also where detention centres are essentially prisons.
Wow.
Okay?
Whoa.
So that just as a little aside, because you do have to put settled status in the context of the Home Office and the hostile environment that is the actual policy behind all immigration policies in the UK at the moment. So it comes in a wider context of the policies that have been created in the last 8 years or so. So I downloaded the app. Like I say, my husband's would kindly let me use his phone. It took us 10 days to actually be in the same room at the same time and both awake, because of course when he goes to work, he has his phone with him. In the evenings, the girls are there. It's not really possible. So anyway, finally, after 10 days...
People are busy.
We have lives. Guess what? Working, earning money to pay tax on.
People who've retired, who are bored, have just done this to mess with people. I was going to use a stronger word there, but the young people who are working, got young families, it's time is so precious, and they're adding to the stress of everyday life. Is this making anyone happier?
Not me.
Is this getting someone off? I've never known this country in the 40 years that I've been here to be so bloody miserable. And
No.
I lived through the Thatcher years. I was
even
young.
I remember them.
I was young, but this is just off the charts. Right, anyway, okay, so you downloaded the app finally after...
So finally, on Tuesday, I said, right, come on, let's do it. Sat down, started it, got my passport out, went through all the bits and pieces. the app, first of all, you put in your name and so on and so forth, and then you have to scan your passport. So you have to close your passport. Actually, first you take a picture of the picture page in your passport. That's fine, that's easy enough. Then you close the passport, you put the phone on top of it, and it's supposed to beep. I think we gave it, I know that NFC was switched on, and I knew that my passport has a microchip. Some people might not be sure if their microchip is broken or something like that. So I wasn't put off. I carried on. We did it about 30 times. In the end, my husband had to hold it like this because it beeped just at the moment when he put it on the passport and, don't move. And then it beeps again when it's actually scanned it. It took a good, I lost count. It took a good 20 or 30 goes. We just kept doing it, kept doing it, kept doing it.
You mentioned you've got arthritis.
Yeah. Imagine if I really was a lot older.
Yeah. How would you do that?
You'd need help. No, old people are going to need help with this.
Is this just picking on the most vulnerable people in society?
Yes. The most vulnerable are the most disadvantaged. The system is easiest for people who are tech savvy, fit, young, working. The system is skewed against anybody with any sort of vulnerability.
This is so cruel.
It makes no sense.
How does regard itself as a Christian nation and it can do this to people?
It is utterly unchristian. It is utterly
and get excited
wrong.
about it. They go, oh yeah, we won. And you're like, yeah, but it's horrible. It's actually horrible what you're doing to people, what you're doing to people's lives.
Yep. And I have no answers for those questions. I ask them myself. I don't understand it. I don't understand why there is such apathy. I don't understand why you're not all up in arms saying, not in my name, this is not what we voted for.
If you don't speak out about this, it is in your name.
If you want to leave the EU, that's fine. The EU asked in the negotiations for there to be a simple registration process. The pressure group, the 3 million, supported this. We at Limbo supported this, a simple registration process that can be combined in the same way as you register to vote. Easy. That's fine. But that's not what we're getting. The settled status we're getting is a completely different thing. It's an application which can be refused. They were going to charge us. In fact, you still have to pay.
Why on earth would anyone from the rest of Europe come here at the moment?
They are not coming.
Why would they come here?
Applications for jobs in nursing are down. We're down 96% already
Foreign
in
direct
2017.
investment's down 92%. The city of London's lost $1 trillion. We worked out that if a small nuclear bomb went off in the middle of London, it will cost less damage than Brexit.
Nice.
Why would anyone come here? To cheat the system.
Although I do have one friend who is still desperate to come here. He says he feels it in his heart that he must be in the UK. He must go to London. It's just something he's always dreamed of. So he planned to come here in a few years' time because he's only just finished his studies and, he's still young and he wants to gain some experience in his field. But he's brought his plans forward because he has to be here before the 29th of March so that he can apply for pre-settled status and be covered if there is a withdrawal agreement.
I thought you had to be here for 5 years. We're going to come on to that, the evidence that needs to be supplied.
Yeah, we'll come on to that presently. So after scanning your passport, you then supply your national insurance number and you agree for your data to be shared with third parties in the public or private sector, both in the UK or overseas. By the way, did you know that the Home Office is exempt from data protection laws and therefore they don't have to disclose to me who they share my data with or how long they hold it for or what they're doing with it?
Stop, hang on. So the Home Office can legally share your data
with anybody?
With Coca-Cola?
Yes.
And there's nothing we can do about it?
Absolutely correct.
Oh my God.
And they don't have to tell me about it either. Nice, right? So I actually, when this whole debacle started, not long after, when I first started looking into it, one of the first things I said was I would not apply for anything. But then obviously I caved. And I do feel that Brexit has broken my back on this. I caved and I put my pride in my pocket. because of them.
Yeah.
Only because of them am I still in the country, and I'm fast losing my self-respect for having given in and for actually agreeing to apply for this. And having done this and having, because I'm aware of this, most people are not aware of this, but I'm aware that I'm giving my data, I'm giving my picture, my biometric data, my fingerprints to all my tax data, all data with DWP and HMRC.
Oh my God!
That's why you give them your. That's why you give them your national insurance.
That you've been in the country for 5 years.
So it checks in the background.
What's the process for showing them all that?
Right. So that's done automatically by the app. So the app checks if you have a footprint with HMRC or DWP. The thing is, in order to be granted settled status automatically, you need to have at least 2 contact points in the last year, so every 6 months. But if you are in receipt of child tax credits and working tax credits, then you'll only have 1 because you only do renew them annually. So that's why my settled status still hasn't been granted. And I applied on Tuesday, but I haven't been able to provide the extra evidence yet, but I'll come on to the problems with providing evidence.
I'm so angry right now. I feel like flipping the table over and just going full Hulk. How dare we do this? Britain is acting like an abusive spouse.
Yes, absolutely.
And we're seeing this not just in this situation, but in the situation where Donald Tusk says something completely true, that there is a special place in hell for the people who enacted or told people to vote for Brexit without a plan. And instead of going, actually, no, Donald, you're wrong. We had a plan all along, and here it is. They just acted like a bunch of spoiled brats. Going, he said a mean thing about us.
Oh yeah, Theresa May complaining about him, the use of his language after she called me a queue jumper. After she used me as a bargaining chip, as negotiating capital. That is the word that was used officially from government sources about me and the other 3 million human beings. We are human beings.
Jeremy Hunt compared the EU to the USSR. He did that to countries like Poland and Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, that have lived behind the Rhine curtain, all was part of the USSR. People who saw their families slaughtered in front of them by the Soviets. And he's comparing the EU to that. He compared the French to the guards of the concentration camp. I'm sorry.
That's not
I'm sorry, but that and what it is, it's the purest form of gaslighting.
Yes.
Where it's like, oh, but you said this one mean thing about me once. And you're like, oh, let's ignore this litany of awful things the British government has officially said by its official spokespeople. Anyway, come on, let's talk about evidence.
Okay, so I supplied my national insurance number, and in the background, the app goes, actually, the app doesn't check your data until you've paid. So I then put in my credit.
I thought it was free.
Well, now, again, the EU asked for it to be free, as did we.
Theresa May said it was going to be free in the House of Parliament.
Yeah, this is wonderful. Do you know, right now, down in, where are we? Where's Old Hall Street? Down there in Old Hall Street, in the Home offices, in the Immigration Department, are a whole room full of civil servants going, how are we going to do this? The app is built to take payment, and as soon as the payment is taken, it does its job of checking in the background with DWP and HMRC. I mean, it's a clever app. It's a clever thing. It works better than a lot of other government IT systems. Give them their dues.
That's the same much, though, is it?
Well, no, it isn't.
Okay, so let's go through the process. You have to download an app that you can only get for certain phones. You get the app, and then you have to scan your passport. So you have to have a biometric passport, a new passport, it's biometric, and the chip has to be working.
Yes.
Okay, so you get over that hurdle. Now you have
Then it scans your face, which, by the way, there was no warning for people suffering from migraines or epilepsy, because it flashes in your face with red and green to read how your face is put together for like biometrics. And it's really intense. It took me like 24 hours to kind of stop seeing the red and the green, because
my mum suffers from migraines. She'd have real trouble with that.
Yeah, well, there you go. I think a lot of people will. And there was no warning that there would be any kind of flashing lights. And it takes your pictures. So that was another little hurdle. I'll make you laugh. I took a video about this because I started looking through it and I read and it said, and then it takes your passport picture. And of course, I was looking like what I said to you earlier. I wasn't looking great. I was tired. My hair was up, blah, blah, blah. I looked a mess. So I was like, oh, great. It's going to take my passport picture and that's going to be associated with my file for the rest of my life. So I better go and put some makeup on. That was another hurdle I had to overcome.
You've got to put your makeup on.
Tiny little things, but still. It's an inconvenience.
It's always an inconvenience for me. Oh my God, do you think that we were secretly taken over by robots?
Sometimes I do wonder.
I can't imagine anyone who's pushing forward these schemes and who thinks this is a good idea to be a human. I don't think they can't be emotions and empathy.
And I mean, look, the very fact that was it Amber Rudd or Andrea Leadsom who turned around and said it'll be as easy as applying for an LK Bennett card.
I don't even know what LK Bennett is.
Most people, I Googled it. It's a shop. It's really, it's like a T-shirt costs over £100. How far are they removed? Well, if she'd said a Marks and Spencer's loyalty card or a Tesco card, fine, we would all know what that is. And it just illustrates how removed from real life they are.
In the movie Blade Runner, the way they could tell whether someone's a human or a robot was by the lack of empathy in a robot, because that was the one thing that they couldn't get right was empathy. This idea that you should be able to put yourself into someone else's situation and go, okay. So let's go back to...
There's no empathy in that system, absolutely none whatsoever.
Let's go back to the process. So you've downloaded, you've scanned your passport, you've scanned your face, put your makeup on, scanned your face. Right, evidence. How does the evidence work?
So then you enter your national insurance number, and in the background, the app checks with DWP and HMRC whether you've had anything to do with them in the last 5 years. And unless there are two connections, so if you've got 5 P60s, if you've been working full-time, then that should be fine. If not, if you're a stay-at-home mum, if you're a carer, if you're self-employed, it'll come back and say, not enough evidence.
What if you're retired?
Same.
So anyone who's born in another country, has lived here for decades, but
Did you
runs
see
their own
that tweet
business
today?
and possibly employs lots of British people in the business, is going to find themselves turned down by the app.
Yes.
So
can I just hark back to the payments? Although Theresa May stood in Parliament and said, we will make it free now, you have to pay it and then you will get reimbursed. So I have no doubt about that, that's fine, but you still have to pay it up front, and the Home Office hasn't worked out yet how they are actually going to reimburse you.
Can I ask if you're saying that it'll knock you back if you're self-employed or retired or a stay-at-home mum or dad, given that, do you still have to pay the fee to apply? Is it like a visa?
No, you have to pay that beforehand. And
And then you find out that you've been rejected.
Yeah.
Now, if you are rejected and the old plan, which was just to charge everyone, you would lose that money.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so what's the next
Theresa
thing once you're
May
rejected?
cancelled the fee as that was a pure PR exercise. That was just gaslighting again. That was like, but we've cancelled the fee now. What are you complaining about?
God, it's like torturing someone.
The fee was the smallest of the problems with it.
It's like torturing someone and say, well, we'll put you the right way up.
Yeah, gee, thanks. So
you should be grateful.
So I have to supply extra evidence, and I didn't really want to do that on the phone on the app. You can photograph, so I left it there. You can save it and come back to it later. Okay, so I did that and went back to it, and then you have to re-enter into it every single time. Like when you first apply, it then sends an online token, and that token is only valid for an hour or so, and then you can go into that.
This sounds really, really complex. You have to get a token.
Yes. The digital token. So you click on that and then you get taken to the Home Office website. So now I've changed devices. I've given my husband his phone back because, he had to go to bed and go to work the next morning. I actually stayed up till 4 a.m. that night, kind of scratching my head for how to go about this. So then I thought, okay, what can I use for evidence? So I went on the Home Office website and looked up what I can use. So you can use bank statements. Do I really want them to know how much is in my bank account, or if I'm overdrawn, or if I have debts, or whatever?
Or if you've been buying stuff from Bondara.
What's that?
It's a website where you can buy things.
Oh, okay. Do I really want to share that information? Or you can use council tax bills, And so on. So I thought, I know, I'll just go on my online banking and I will get some PDFs of my statements and then I can attach them. Because that's the other thing, you can only attach up to 10 documents. And each document mustn't be more than 6 meg, I think, 6 megabytes. Is that right? It's something like that.
That seems like a lot. A 6 megabyte document would be quite big.
I don't know. It's a number. It's a number.
But it's a picture, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, if it's a picture. The assumption is that you might be taking a picture of a bill or something.
They have a limit on how many.
There's a limit of 10 things. I mean, but to be fair, that makes sense because you only need two things for each year. Although in some cases people
have... Yeah, but if they reject one of those things...
Exactly. Well, so then they would come back to you. And then it does ask, would you prefer to be emailed or would you prefer to be contacted by phone? I happen to know somebody who works in the EU settlement scheme, and there is in the immigration office. And in the immigration office, it's not a given that they will phone you and ask you to supply something, or that they will say, oh, we can't accept this, can you send something else, and talk to you. Sometimes they just reject, and on your head be it.
So there's no
scheme is a little bit better. Not really. That depends on the individual caseworker to some extent.
Oh, sorry. There's a caseworker now. Where have they come from?
Well, if it's not been automatically accepted, then it's going to have to get sent to a caseworker because an actual person.
On that?
I think they hired either 1,300 or 1,500.
No, I mean,
people.
like how many people have been rejected?
We don't know yet. For settled status, we have no idea yet. If you're not given settled status, then you're given pre-settled status. So for us, we perceive that as a rejection, but it isn't officially a rejection because you've got a status. But of course, you're at a great disadvantage with pre-settled status because pre-settled status simply runs out at the end of your 5-year period. And then you have to apply again to actually get settled status. And by then, because it's subject to secondary legislation, and they're already making changes and tinkering with it, and it's still in the trial phases.
This is based on stuff that hasn't even been passed by government yet.
Well, they can make changes without the government because it's secondary legislation. They don't need primary legislation. So it's actually better to have indefinite leave to remain, but they are asking that by the end of 2021, anybody who has indefinite leave to remain, so people who came here before 1983, that they apply for settled status as well, convert their settled status, which puts them at a disadvantage because indefinite leave to remain is subject to primary legislation. So to make any changes to that, you actually need to go through Parliament, whereas settled status is subject to secondary legislation. So the Home Office just informs Parliament that they are making a change, and thankfully there are now, not in the past, but we know that the Home Office has made about 5,000 changes in the last 7 years. So they do this all the time. Yeah, an average of 500 changes a year, I think.
Okay, so originally when we started doing this, I said this is going to be about 15, 20 minutes. We're already half an hour in, almost.
Sorry.
No,
we're getting there.
We're not even through it yet.
So now I'm sitting at my computer.
Complex.
Exactly.
So
and then I had a problem because the dongle to go into my online bank, so this is nothing to do with the Home Office, it's completely on my end. The dongle to go into my online banking decided on that evening to break.
Okay, but
so I've got to wait for a week to get that back.
What's the thing with the token? You've got an hour to...
You've got an hour to log in.
But
and then every time I log
in, the information.
I don't know how long it takes to time out. Okay, I did time out a couple of times, but I don't know how long. If you don't have internet
banking, you have to go to your bank and ask for a statement?
Yeah, exactly. So what I did in the end is I actually photographed a statement and tried to submit it. And now you're not going through the app anymore. You're now on the website of the Home Office, which means you're dealing with the actual Home Office IT system, which is not as good as the app and crashes all the time, especially in the evening after work hours when everybody's on it. So I ended up, I made one picture of my one statement for the last 6 months and submitted it. And for some reason or another, I must have maybe clicked the submit button a couple of times too many. Anyway, I ended up with 10 versions of it, 10 copies of it.
Excellent, good.
So then I went back to try and delete them, because it wouldn't process my information because it said you've got too many, and that's when it crashed. So that's as far as I've got.
So you're not even finished this whole thing?
Oh, no. Today's Friday. I started Tuesday evening.
Oh my word. Oh my word.
I'm laughing because if I wasn't laughing, I would be crying. I have had enough of it. I am desperate that I do not understand why it has to be so difficult. Why does it have to be designed in such a way that it's more difficult if you're a carer or a stay-at-home parent to prove that I've been in the country. They have records. If I leave the country, they scan my passport. They know when I've been in and out of the country anyway. And by the way, I haven't, because I can't afford to travel. I know we're supposed to be the metropolitan elite, and yes, we can. We have the freedom and the rights to actually hop across, but this country's economy is not doing that great. I'm not earning that much that I can go on holidays as many times as I would like to, and as I would be able to if I was living and working in Germany. But I ended up here, and I do love this country, and I have my family here.
You're stuck.
You know, I'm stuck, exactly. I mean, it's a bit of a stereotype in Liverpool, isn't it? I came here for uni and got stuck. Yeah. Well, that's me, sorry. Sorry.
It's a great city. Who would want to leave?
It's the best city in the world, darling. Well, other cities do qualify as well.
No, they don't. Liverpool, best city in the world. Oh my God. But
probably.
And we voted Remain.
Yes, we did.
Put that out there. We voted.
Well, I didn't get a vote.
That's another video. Well,
we've done that one.
The three blokes that we did with you.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm gutted. I want to apologise on behalf of my entire nation, but in a way I want to apologise on behalf of my entire species.
You are apologising with the work you do, with the campaigning you do. But every single British person, I don't care whether you voted Leave or Remain, if you are not, even if you voted Leave, please hold your government to account to deliver a legal Brexit that does not violate human rights, that preserves citizens' rights, that does not exactly tear up families. You know, if you are not campaigning for a people's vote or writing to your MP telling them to ring-fence our rights, the rights of the 3 million EU citizens and the nearly 2 million British citizens in the EU 27 countries, then you should hang your head in shame, because it is shameful what is being done here.
We have committed no crime. We've lost no war.
Nope.
Why are our rights being taken away?
No. Entirely self-inflicted.
Where's our sense of common decency gone? And common sense? We're turning the 27 of our trading partners into 27 of our closest trading rivals.
Yep.
We must be absolutely stark-raking bonkers. And not just stupid and mad, but also evil at the same time, because I can't think of any other
there
words.
There is definitely, in terms of the settled status application, there is evil in it. And look, did you see that tweet today? I can't remember who tweeted it, but it basically said, I just bumped into my neighbour who, it turns out, is actually a German citizen and has lived here for 74 years, and said today she is going to Edinburgh to apply for settled status. Now, can I just add there, the German and the other EU 27 embassies, but I know it for a fact from the head of consular services at the German embassy, they advised and requested the Home Office that they should maybe use the libraries up and down the countries to have places where people can scan their documents and so on and so forth, and maybe even get advice, or use local councils in the same way as they had the document checking service. Well, they've decided to do that, but only in 13 locations in the whole country.
Where's this
Plus
person travelling to Edinburgh from?
We don't know. Edinburgh is the only place in Scotland, so they might be going there from the Isle of Skye.
Scotland that also voted Remain.
Yeah. Scotland, that was told in 2014, if you want to stay in the EU, you have to vote against independence, and then 2 years later is getting dragged out of the EU against her will. Nice.
This is the end of us. This is the end of us as a nation that people looked up to and people respected.
The UK is utterly the laughing stock of the rest of the world.
We've lost
utterly
all
the laughing
respect.
stock.
I'm so sorry that you're having to go through this. I'm doing everything in my power to try and, given my shortcomings, to try and stop
And
this from
I
happening.
salute you and admire you for channeling your rage and your anger into positive action, and I wish more people would do it, because we get a lot of, I've had a lot of people who said, I'm ashamed to be British nowadays. Well, that's a start, and it's not a nice feeling, and I don't want anybody to feel ashamed, but I think it's appropriate. But then what are you going to do with that sense of shame? Are you just going to sit there and go, oh, I feel ashamed, and let it happen? Or are you going to write to your MP, tweet your MP, send them a Facebook message and say, what's going on? Don't do this in my name.
Yeah.
Ring fence our rights, or, that's even if Brexit goes ahead. Or make sure that there is a deal of some description, or at least, give the vote back to the people. Emmeline Pankhurst said that politicians listen only to votes or riots. If I am denied a vote, my only recourse is to riot. So we're not allowed a people's vote because they're scared of leavers rioting. No, I'd be far more worried about the riots that would ensue if and when the UK leaves. If the UK leaves without a withdrawal agreement, we know that there will be food shortages. We know that there will be supply problems in terms of medicines. We know of people who have been told that they can't make an appointment for their cancer treatment after the end of March.
Again, why are we doing this? There's no logical, there's no reason for this that is even remotely good. And by good, I mean in all senses of the word. Brexit is evil. And if you still support it, you're an evil person. You're doing bad things. You're creating suffering needlessly for other people, for no benefit whatsoever to you or anyone else who lives in this country.
Everybody loses, right?
Everybody loses. Thank you so much for coming to speak to me.
Thanks for having me, Graham.
I'm going out now to flip over some tables. I don't know. Oh my word.
I'll be writing to my MP again today. Write to your MP.
Yeah.
Campaign.
Make your voice heard.
Yeah.
And maybe one day we'll reverse all this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Buy the book in Limbo. Give it to your Leave voting friends, because it will teach them about whose people's rights they've voted to take away.